A lot of people still talk about Taylor Swift's rise to fame, and speaking of rise, she shared earlier this summer her new obsession with baking sourdough. And so Paige is live in Oak Cliff inside Kuluntu Bakery to share some tips on how to achieve the perfect rise. And Paige, are you ready for it? You see what I
I'm ready for it, and you were talking about friendship bracelets, and we got some right here. I'm so excited to introduce you to my new friend. This is Stephanie Leitchtle-Chalken. She is the owner of Kuluntu Bakery. We're going to be talking about sourdough, and let me just tell you, this is like a whole new world. I didn't know anything about sourdough, but there's all kinds of stuff related to this crusty, wonderful bread. So, you were wearing your cute t-shirt.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about Kuluntu Bakery. Tell me all about it.
Yes, Kuluntu Bakery is a nonprofit bakery, and our mission is to co-create a more equitable food system by centering women, humanizing food workers, and building collective power.
I love that.
Yes.
And there's some South African ties to this as well.
That's right. We started Kuluntu when we were living in Cape Town. My husband's from South Africa. And Kuluntu means community in Xhosa, which is South African language.
That's so cool. All right, so let's begin the process. How do we start? If we wanted to do this at home, where would we begin?
Okay, so we are going to begin with our flours. We have 3 flours here.
Okay.
We have an all-purpose flour, and we have 2 flours from Barton Springs Mill, a whole wheat flour and a rye flour.
And we mentioned Barton Springs Mill because this is a nonprofit, and you've got some fantastic partners that are with you in this that really help support your cause. So beginning here, now what's the next step?
Yes, okay, so we're gonna put on our gloves.
Okay, I'm ready.
And we are going to add our water to the mix. This is temped out because temperature is really important in this whole process.
Yes, so I was reading about this. Like, temperature is a big part of the whole equation.
Yes,
all right.
huge.
And you also have to even keep your house at a certain temperature.
It makes things easier.
Okay, all right, so then what's next?
Okay, so now we're just gonna go in with our hand. And we're using our dominant hand to just mix it.
I love this feeling in your fingers.
One of the things that I love talking about with sourdough bread is how it incorporates all of the senses. So I always invite people to really think about that as they are diving into this craft.
It honestly feels like a little therapeutic.
Definitely.
I'm not kidding. And I'm not a baker or a cook, or pretty much I spend as much time away from the kitchen as possible. But this is really lovely. All right, so quickly, we got to go through this kind of quickly.
Okay, so we're mixing it.
The classes are normally 4 hours long. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so now we're going to, normally we'd let it sit for a little bit, but we are going to add in our salt.
Okay. There we go.
Dump that in, and then we are going to add in our sourdough starter.
All right, let's talk about the sourdough starter for just a minute. It has a name, okay? Its name is Flubby, and here is Flubby. Now, Flubby is a living, breathing entity. At one point, your husband almost accidentally threw Flubby away, and it was like throwing away a family member.
Oh,
It could have caused some marital strife, but this is something that you have for years?
Yes, yeah, so we actually made Flubby when we first moved to New York in 2015, came with us to Cape Town, and then here to Dallas.
Wow.
And it is a living culture made with wild yeast, good bacteria, and this is what you add to your dough instead of yeast to ferment and leaven your dough.
All right, so, and the other thing that I think is interesting too is how simple these ingredients are. We're talking salt, we're talking water, we're talking flour, we're talking Flubby, and the process itself, it's not something that's complicated. It has a lot to do with time, and it has a lot to do with temperature.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, once you understand the process, it's so easy to incorporate it into your lifestyle. You just have to have, a little bit of knowledge, and there's a lot of trial and error. And it's very sticky. This is what I use my bowl scraper for.
All right, so
just
you
scrape
can
it off,
scrape this thing
keep
out.
our bowl nice and clean, and then once we have it mixed, at this point, we would cover our bowl, and we would let it sit for about 4 hours.
Okay.
We want our dough between 78 to 80 degrees.
Okay, I'm going to take off this glove now. All right, so now we've done that. So we're going to speed up this process.
So we're skipping ahead to the next day here. So typically, you would let that dough ferment, and then we would shape it, and it would go into the fridge, and then this is the next day. We let it sit in the fridge overnight.
All right, so now we're going to do
we're going to score our bread.
Score it.
So this is right before baking. We take it out of the fridge and it'll be nice and cold.
All right.
And then we are going to just put a little bit of
And
flour.
believe it or not, we only have like a minute left, and this makes me very, very sad.
We're gonna go quick.
All right.
We are gonna score this bread.
Okay.
So just a quick little.
Wait, do I do that too?
You can do.
I'm gonna do this.
whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, do that leaf
A
pattern.
little leaf pattern. Look at this.
And while you do that, I'm gonna pull the bread out of the oven that we just baked.
Ooh, we're gonna get some bread, my friend. I am feeling a little bready. Now, you also have classes that you do teach here out of your home
Yes.
bakery, and we've got some exciting news because you're gonna be opening your first brick and mortar
That's right.
bakery. Oh, goodbye. Okay, sorry about that. So tell us about that. That's exciting news.
Yes, we are opening our first brick and mortar at East Dock, which is by the Dallas Zoo, and it will be a bakery, cafe, and community space where we'll have our events and programming.
We'll slice this up really quick. So I want to
Yes.
take a bite. This has been so much fun. I genuinely am interested in doing sourdough at home. So I am learning something from Taylor Swift, but more importantly from Stephanie herself. I want to thank you so much for this.
Thank you so
Can I have
much.
a little bitty bite right
Absolutely.
now? Before we go?
Yeah, let's just tear off some bread.
And it is nice and warm and
Yep.
fluffy. All right. You can find out more information by going to their website, which is kuluntubakery.org. Thank you again. We
Thanks.
appreciate it.